truck, an IED went off to what I thought was going to be a catastrophic kill because it was so big, and before I knew it, the front end of the Humvee was down on the ground, to which I thought it had blown the entire front end of the Humvee off, and it was just laying on the chassis. Well, what had happened is the IED went off, and the truck drove right into the crater. And before I knew it, all 4 Marines climbed out of the truck, provided security. Well, before any of that, it was within, I bet, a second, maybe a second and a half of time elapsed from that explosion went off, and then all of a sudden the truck in front of that one blew up, and that was definitely a catastrophic kill. It was right underneath the driver of the Humvee, and it sent the Humvee through the air and flipped it over on the other side, trapping the turret gunner underneath the truck, killing the driver, and taking what was there, three urgent surgicals. Well, each wounds. The lieutenant. There was 2 lieutenants. One was our XO, and one was the platoon commander.
So the KIA that was PFC.
Bedard. Yes, he was driving.
And the second lieutenant Hendricks.
Yes, Matthew Hendricks. He was riding in the front passenger seat. He ended up getting a piece of shrapnel right through his butt and through his thigh, and that was the wound. Some of the wounds that I had ended up dressing that day. Then Lieutenant Watson ended up getting just a small shrapnel to his ankle and stuff. He was the first one to climb out of the Humvee and started calling for help. And then he was in the back, in the rear passenger seat, and then Doc Leoncio was in the rear driver's side seat.
And Doc Leoncio, y'all called him Doc Leo?
Yeah. He got his foot amputated right, I don't know, about, midway on the shin.
And when you mean amputated, you mean he was just stuck under the vehicle? The vehicle was actually pinched his foot under the vehicle?
No.
Okay.
No, it was from the explosion. The explosion went off underneath the driver and ejected him from the vehicle, and it also tore the foot off of him, and really hanging there by flesh. There wasn't much holding his leg on there. By the time I had gotten up there, someone had already put a tourniquet on his leg, and Seeley. Seeley was in the turret, and he got pinned underneath the truck when it was upside down on top of him.
He was actually hurt pretty bad.
Yeah, he was hurt. He was hurt real bad.
How long was he trapped under the vehicle? It took
at least 45 minutes to an hour and a half, somewhere in there. I'm not real sure. I ended up leaving with the first Casevac, because I remember I came running up on scene, started evaluating the situation. Everyone was facing inboard. The only people around, there was no experienced Marines around there. They were all pretty junior Marines. We were a pretty junior company at that point, So I basically took control, started telling Marines to look outboard, start taking up security positions, and then started focusing on, once that was covered, then I started focusing on Leoncio and getting him Casevac back to the truck, because the 2 lieutenants had already made their way over to a different highback that had come up that we were going to use as a Casevac vehicle. Me and 2 other Marines started carrying Doc Leoncio towards the truck, and
there was somebody that actually said something, wasn't there?
Yeah, another young Marine that had just come from security forces, a Corporal Ludke, Jason Ludke. He came up on scene, and he was going to come help. I told him to come over and come help us carry him, because heavy with all that gear, and plus I wanted him to help support the limb that was just dangling there. And he came up and he looked at you know, at the wound, and he said, you know, "Oh my God," and he just kind of like, you know, it's not something that you want an injured or wounded person to hear. Like, you don't want to hear that when you're hurt. So I yelled at him a little bit, and corrected him, and Leoncio looked up at me and he's like, "Belmont, am I gonna be okay?" And I was like, "Doc," and then this is what I told him, I was like, your bleeding's under control, you're not bleeding anymore. I was like, "You're gonna be fine." I was like, you're gonna lose your foot. I was like, "You and I both know your foot's gone, but the bleeding's under control, you're gonna be fine." And he's like, "Thank you." And we got him back to his, we got him over to the Kazbek vehicle, basically from there, I treated Lieutenant Hendricks. Lieutenant Hendricks, I haven't seen him in a long time. Treated his wounds, and then helped with Leoncio. You know, found out that he had some internal bleeding, or it seemed like he had internal bleeding. I couldn't confirm or anything like that, but he had definitely had the symptoms of it. He had, you know, his abdomen in his lower right quadrant was real swollen, and it was tender. So I didn't tell him about that because I didn't want him to worry about it, because there was nothing we could do about it at the scene anyways. But when we got back to Charlie Med, which is the medical station where we did all our Kazbaks too, passed that information on to the medical people as they you know, started unloading the casualties from the back of the truck, and it all worked out great. Like, they got in there, stopped his bleeding, you know, took care of him, and he's doing great now, you know. So
Yeah, get in the Bronze Star for that, right?
yes.
And do you, so by the time Lieutenant Hendricks and Lieutenant Watson were gone,
Say again?
when you arrived at the Humvee, I'm just kind of stepping back.
Yes, I passed them on the way up. Like, Lieutenant Watson was calling for a corpsman, and there was no corpsman around, so I told Lieutenant Watson that I'd take care of it because I'm an EMT, and he's like, "All right," you know.
He's still kind of in shock.
Yeah, he was still a little bit in shock, but that's basically how that went down.
Right. The next event was the elections. This was October 14th to 16th. I understand you were responsible for getting some of the poll workers.
Yes. My part in that was a few days before the elections, I had to go down to TQ, which is, you know, a larger base, and had to basically go corral them and try and help organize it. And it was a mess. It was, if the term herding cats means anything, like, that's what it was like. Like, the language barrier, the culture barrier, like everything. It was horrible trying to organize this event. Like, they didn't give us the tools we needed to do the job as well as we could have. And then just working with these people that just don't know about organization. Like, it's hard enough, you know, trying to get Marines to do what you want them to do in an orderly fashion, and then you've got these civilians where you can't really tell them exactly what you want, and then even when you do, they're like, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" Like, you know. So it was tough trying to corral them up and keep them organized and say, "You're going here, you're going here, this is where you're going to be," and then all of a sudden, before you know it, like, it just comes down to numbers. Like, all right, we're just going to take these 25 people, and, you know, it just it was a pain in the butt, and stayed there for a few, flying back and forth on a 46. To and from, you know, from TQ to Camp Amati, drop them off, go back, go pick up some more, and then the next, you know, that day, then I ended up going to down on IED Elbow to the school down there, And basically,
that's where they had the polling station.
yes, that was where the polling station was. That way,